When Nicolás Maduro was captured, every government rushed to issue a statement. Not because they cared about Venezuela, but because everyone suddenly imagined themselves in the same situation. And that's where it gets funny. Let's start with Europe. Europe's response was classic Europe. Strong words, concerned faces, very careful grammar. They said things like, "We support democracy, but also international law, but also stability, but also not upsetting Washington." Europe tried to stand on every side at once, which is impressive balance, but it scares absolutely no one. Europe's message was simple. We don't like dictators, but please don't make this a habit. Europe uses spreadsheets. America uses helicopters. They trade, they regulate, they write very long documents. They do not want a world where leaders get removed suddenly, because Europe prefers predictable decline over unexpected shocks. Now, let's talk about the United Kingdom. Britain said, "We were not involved. We are assessing the situation. We urge restraint." Translation, please don't drag us into this. We already have enough problems. The UK wants to remain America's closest ally, while also pretending it still has independent influence. It's a delicate performance. Britain supports US power, as long as it doesn't require British action. Global Britain, but with global disclaimers. Now, Mexico, the neighbor who feels everything first. Mexico reacted like the adult in the room, quoted the UN Charter, spoke very carefully, not because Mexico loves rules, because Mexico lives next to the United States. Mexico's foreign policy is simple. Please don't test new ideas. We're right here. When Washington experiments, Mexico gets the consequences. Mexico doesn't like Maduro, but Mexico really hates one idea even more, that powerful countries can grab leaders whenever they feel like it. Because once that becomes normal, everyone starts sweating, including Mexico. So when Mexico says, "Please don't normalize this," what they really mean is, today it's Venezuela, tomorrow, don't look south. That's not principle, that's survival. Now, South America. This is where the panic starts. Brazil was furious. Sovereignty, international law, dangerous precedent, all shouted very loudly. Brazil doesn't like Maduro, but Brazil likes Washington deciding things in South America even less. Brazil sees itself as the boss of the region. Big country, big economy, big ego. So, when the US captures a leader nearby, Brazil doesn't think, "Good, problem solved." Brazil thinks, "Why wasn't I consulted?" This isn't fear of invasion, it's fear of being ignored. Brazil didn't see a dictator fall. Brazil saw the rules change without Brazil in the room, and that's the real panic. Then, Argentina. Argentina was celebrating. Finally, he's gone. No rules, no principles. Because Argentina isn't thinking about law, Argentina is thinking, please stop the chaos. Maduro's regime sent millions fleeing across the region, scared investors, and made an already bad economy even harder to survive. So when he disappears, Argentina doesn't ask how. Argentina asks, is it quieter now? If yes, Argentina claps and looks away. This isn't confidence, it's survival mode. And survival mode doesn't read the rule book. Now Colombia. Colombia didn't cheer, didn't clap, didn't smile. Colombia condemned, very serious, very loud, very nervous. Colombia doesn't love Maduro. Maduro only sent refugees, crime, border chaos. But Colombia also knows something important. When the US decides a neighbor is unacceptable, things move fast. So Colombia didn't celebrate. Colombia checked the border, checked security, checked the calendar. Because Colombia has learned this lesson the hard way. When America acts nearby, you don't give speeches, you brace yourself. Now we move to Cuba. Cuba was angry, very angry. Talking about imperialism, sovereignty, American aggression. Same speech, same script, same year, 1962. Cuba doesn't care about Maduro. Cuba cares about survival, because Cuba knows one thing very well. If America removes your friend, you are next on the worry list. Cuba saw Maduro disappear and thought, good thing we don't have oil. That's not confidence. That's trauma with memory. Now ASEAN. ASEAN reacted the ASEAN way. Calm, neutral, concerned. Lots of words, no strong opinion. ASEAN countries survive by not choosing sides loudly. They trade with China. They rely on the US for security. They pretend this balance can last forever. Maduro's capture scares them, because when a big power decides a situation is intolerable, not choosing a side doesn't protect you anymore. When rules change, fence-sitters feel the wind first. Then Africa. Africa's reaction was very polite, very legal, very nervous. The African Union talked about sovereignty, international law, and restraint, because many African states rely on one idea to survive. Please don't touch leaders. Once leaders can be removed externally, power becomes fragile. Africa doesn't care about Maduro. Africa cares about the precedent and whether they will be the next. Now the Middle East. This is where reactions split instantly. Israel applauded. No hesitation, no legal essays. Why? Because Israel likes a world where the US acts fast and finishes the job. Strength scares enemies. Hesitation invites them. Very simple math. And yes, Benjamin Netanyahu was definitely taking notes. Not about Venezuela, about who might be next on America's problem list. Meanwhile, Iran was furious. Very loud condemnation, very moral language, which tells you everything. Iran didn't see Maduro. Iran saw a preview. Because Iran understands one brutal truth. If removing leaders becomes normal, the list doesn't stay short. Iran doesn't fear America's words. Iran fears becoming the next example everyone studies. Israel saw strength. Iran saw a warning. And that's why the region reacted so differently. And now, the two main characters. China. China did not stay quiet. China shouted, condemned, cried about sovereignty, which tells you one thing. China only shouts like this when it feels personally threatened. China backed Maduro for oil and influence, not love. And now he's gone. Its investments in Venezuela all gone to the drain. That scares Beijing. Because China is not seeing one country fall. China is seeing a pattern. Iran pressured, Maduro removed. Next could be an African partner. Allies falling one by one. Now Russia. Russia was furious, shouting about sovereignty, international law, rules. Which is funny, from a country that rewrites borders with tanks. Putin is not scared Trump will remove him. Their relationship is still workable. But Russia was shocked. Because the US didn't argue, didn't negotiate, didn't ask the UN. It just acted. Fast. That shocked Moscow. Not because of Maduro, but because it proved something uncomfortable. America can still remove leaders it truly hates, and the world can't really stop it. So Russia's outrage isn't fear, it's resentment, because this wasn't about rules. It was a reminder of who still sets them. Now add Volodymyr Zelensky. When he says it's good the US captured an authoritarian leader, he's not talking about Venezuela. Everyone knows that. Zelensky is sending a message to Washington, and especially to Moscow. He's saying, if America can remove one dictator, it can remove another. No names mentioned, no threats made. But the meaning is obvious. So did this change the world order? No. It reminded the world. Trump captured Maduro in one day. Putin is still stuck in Ukraine. Years, no finish. Xi keeps talking about Taiwan. Still talking. One acted, two hesitated. The world noticed. Power didn't change hands. Illusions collapsed. When one leader needs years and speeches, and another needs one day and a helicopter, the real superpower answers itself.
Thank you for watching Pastcast, where the past echoes through today. If you enjoyed the satire, scrolls, and scandals, like, subscribe, and ring the bell before the next empire falls.